Hello, and welcome back to Speak English Daily.
Hi, everyone. We are very happy to see you here today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Speak English Daily. I'm Anna, and we're very happy you're joining us today. Our topic is something that sounds inspiring, yet it can also feel challenging. We're talking about becoming the best version of yourself. It's a phrase we hear everywhere. We hear it in books, videos, podcasts, and conversations. Most people like the idea, but many people also misunderstand it.
I'm Mike, and I think that's because the phrase creates a very specific image in our minds. When people hear "become the best version of yourself," they often imagine perfection. They imagine the perfect career, the perfect habits, the perfect body, the perfect relationships, and the perfect life. Suddenly, personal growth starts feeling less inspiring and more exhausting. Instead of feeling motivated, people begin feeling pressure.
That's so true. I think many people get stuck because they're chasing an impossible standard. They're so focused on who they think they should become that they forget to appreciate who they already are. Before we continue, let's ask our listeners something. Have you ever felt like you're not where you're supposed to be in life? Maybe you're learning English, building confidence, or working toward a personal goal. But sometimes it feels like you're moving too slowly.
If you've ever felt that way, you're certainly not alone. Modern life constantly shows us examples of success. We see people reaching goals, starting businesses, traveling the world, and achieving impressive things. After a while, it becomes easy to believe that everyone else is moving faster than we are. That's why today's conversation is important. We need to ask a simple question. What does becoming your best self actually mean?
For me, it doesn't mean becoming someone else. It doesn't mean transforming yourself into a completely different person. I think becoming your best self means becoming more fully yourself. It means understanding your strengths, recognizing your weaknesses, and making choices that help you grow. Personal growth isn't about creating a new identity. It's about developing the qualities that already exist within you.
I completely agree. One word that connects beautifully to this idea is intentional. Intentional means acting with purpose instead of reacting automatically. An intentional person makes conscious decisions. For example, someone might say, "I want to spend my time more intentionally," or "intentional habits have improved my life." In both examples, the person is making thoughtful choices rather than simply following routines without thinking.
That's why I love this word. Living intentionally means asking yourself important questions. Why am I doing this? Is this helping me grow? Does this choice reflect my values? Those questions can change the direction of your life. Instead of copying what everyone else is doing, you begin focusing on what truly matters to you.
And that's where meaningful growth often begins, not with dramatic transformation, but with awareness and purpose. Many people think growth requires huge changes, but I've noticed that the most powerful improvements are often small. They're easy to overlook at first because they don't look impressive. Yet those small changes can completely transform a person's life over time.
That's such an important point. People often underestimate small improvements. Everyone wants dramatic results. They want fast success, immediate confidence, and visible progress. But real growth usually happens quietly. It happens day by day, habit by habit, and decision by decision. In the beginning, those changes can be almost invisible.
Learning English is a perfect example. One day of practice doesn't feel life-changing, neither does 1 week. Sometimes even 1 month can feel slow. Yet, if you continue practicing consistently, something remarkable happens. You start understanding more conversations. You remember more vocabulary. You feel more comfortable speaking. The progress that once felt invisible slowly becomes obvious.
Confidence develops the same way. People often imagine confidence arriving suddenly, but it usually grows gradually. It grows through practice and experience. It grows through showing up again and again. Looking back, you often realize you've made much more progress than you thought.
That's why patience is so important. Many people give up because they expect immediate results. They don't realize that small daily actions are creating change beneath the surface. Growth may feel slow while it's happening, but over time, those small actions become powerful.
Another thing that often slows people down is comparison. This is something many of us struggle with. We see other people succeeding and begin measuring ourselves against them. Instead of focusing on our own journey, we become distracted by someone else's progress.
And comparison often creates an emotional state called discouragement. Discouragement means losing confidence, motivation, or hope because something feels difficult. For example, constantly comparing yourself to others can create discouragement. Feeling behind in life can create discouragement. Focusing only on your mistakes can create discouragement. It's an emotion that makes growth feel harder than it really is.
What makes comparisons so misleading is that we rarely compare fairly. We see someone's achievements, but we don't see their struggles. We see their success, but not the failures that came before it. We compare our everyday reality to their best moments, and that creates an unrealistic picture.
That's why I think it's healthier to focus on your own progress. Instead of asking, why am I not where they are, ask, how can I improve from where I am today? That question creates growth instead of frustration. Small progress may seem ordinary, but it's often the cure for discouragement.
Speaking of growth, there's another belief that many people have. They believe confidence comes first. They think they need confidence before speaking English, before starting a project, or before making an important change in their lives. As a result, they spend years waiting to feel ready.
Yet, confidence often comes later. It develops after action, not before it. Think about any skill you've learned. You probably didn't begin with confidence. You began with uncertainty. You made mistakes. You learned through experience. Over time, those experiences created confidence. That's why waiting for confidence can keep people stuck.
Let me ask our listeners something. Is there something you've wanted to do for a long time but keep postponing because you don't feel confident enough? Maybe it's speaking English more often. Maybe it's starting a new habit. Maybe it's making a change you've been thinking about for years. Take a moment to think about it.
Because sometimes confidence is not the requirement for action. Sometimes confidence is the result of action. The first step may feel uncomfortable, but that's often where growth begins. Many opportunities appear only after we're willing to move forward despite uncertainty.
And once people take that first step, they often discover something unexpected about themselves. Personal growth has a way of revealing things that were hidden before. That's why I believe self-awareness is one of the most valuable qualities a person can develop. Self-awareness means understanding your thoughts, emotions, habits, strengths, and weaknesses. It means being honest enough to look at yourself clearly, rather than simply assuming you already know who you are. The interesting thing is that self-awareness sounds positive, but it isn't always comfortable.
That's very true. Sometimes self-awareness shows us things we'd rather avoid. We may discover habits that waste our time, fears that influence our decisions, or patterns that keep repeating in our lives. I think many people want growth without self-examination, but those two things rarely happen separately. The more you understand yourself, the easier it becomes to identify what is helping you move forward and what is holding you back. Without self-awareness, people often keep repeating the same mistakes without realizing why.
One thing that frequently appears during that process is something called a limiting belief. This is a very useful expression for English learners because it appears often in conversations about personal development. A limiting belief is an idea that convinces you that your possibilities are smaller than they really are. In other words, it's a belief that limits your growth, even if that belief isn't actually true.
That's a great definition. Limiting beliefs can sound very convincing because they often feel like facts. Someone might think, I'm too old to learn something new. Another person might think, I'm not confident enough to succeed. Someone else may tell themselves, people like me never achieve big goals. After repeating those thoughts for years, they stop sounding like opinions and start sounding like reality.
What's fascinating is that many people never stop to question those thoughts. They simply accept them. Yet, if they examined those beliefs carefully, they might discover very little evidence supporting them. The mind can create stories that feel permanent even when they're not. That's why asking simple questions can be powerful. Is this belief helping me? Is it based on facts? Would I say this to a friend?
I love those questions because they create space between us and our assumptions. Growth often begins when we realize that our current thinking isn't necessarily permanent. The person you are today is not automatically the person you'll be a year from now. Skills can be learned, confidence can be developed, habits can change. Once people understand that, many limiting beliefs start losing their power.
Another thing I've noticed is that people often imagine personal growth as a straight path. They picture a smooth journey where every week is better than the one before. It sounds nice, but real life usually looks very different. Some periods feel exciting because you're focused, energized, and making progress. Then, suddenly, life becomes complicated. Unexpected challenges appear, your routines get interrupted, your momentum disappears.
And that's usually the moment when people become worried. They assume something has gone wrong. They think a difficult week means they're failing. But setbacks are a normal part of almost every meaningful journey. Whether you're learning English, building a business, improving your health, or developing confidence, there will be periods when progress feels slower. There will be moments when old habits return. That doesn't erase the progress you've already made.
I think that's one lesson people need to hear more often. A setback is not the same thing as starting over. Sometimes we become so focused on a temporary problem that we forget how much we've already accomplished. One difficult month doesn't cancel 6 months of effort. One mistake doesn't erase everything you've learned. Growth includes challenges. In many cases, challenges are what create growth.
Social media can make that difficult to remember. Most people share exciting achievements, major milestones, and happy moments. They don't usually share every setback, frustration, or period of self-doubt. As a result, we see a polished version of reality. We see the outcome, but not the process.
That's where the idea of a highlight reel becomes useful. A highlight reel is a collection of someone's best moments. Imagine watching only the winning moments from an athlete's career. You would see victories, celebrations, and achievements. What you wouldn't see are the years of training, failures, injuries, and disappointments that happened along the way.
That's such a powerful comparison. When we compare ourselves to another person's highlight reel, we're missing most of the story. We assume their success was smooth when it may have been full of obstacles. Understanding that can help us become more patient with our own journey. Everyone experiences ups and downs. The difference is that we usually see our own struggles while seeing only other people's successes.
Speaking of ups and downs, let's talk about motivation. Many people place a huge amount of importance on feeling motivated. They wait for inspiration before taking action. When motivation is present, everything feels easier. You wake up excited, full of energy, and ready to work toward your goals.
The challenge is that motivation doesn't always stay. Some days you feel focused and enthusiastic, other days you feel tired, distracted, or uninterested. That's completely normal. Human beings aren't designed to feel highly motivated every single day. The problem comes when people stop moving forward whenever motivation disappears.
That's why consistency is often more important than motivation. Consistency means continuing even when you don't feel excited. It means showing up again and again because you've made a commitment to yourself. The people who achieve meaningful growth aren't necessarily the most motivated. They're often the most consistent.
Let me ask our listeners something. Is there one habit you've wanted to build for a long time but never fully committed to? Maybe it's practicing English every day. Maybe it's exercising more often. Maybe it's reading regularly or spending less time on your phone. Think about that habit for a moment. What would happen if you focused less on motivation and more on consistency?
That's a wonderful question because our future is often shaped by what we repeat. Small actions performed regularly can create extraordinary results. We don't always notice the effect immediately, but repetition has tremendous power. One day may seem insignificant, hundreds of days rarely are.
And that connects perfectly to another quality that becomes more valuable as we grow older: patience. Patience can be surprisingly difficult because we live in a culture that values speed. We can order products instantly, communicate instantly, and access information instantly. After a while, we begin expecting everything else to happen quickly too.
Yet many of life's most meaningful achievements operate on a different timeline. Strong relationships take time. Trust takes time. Learning a language takes time. Personal growth takes time. Sometimes people become frustrated because they can't see immediate results, but important changes are often happening beneath the surface long before they become visible.
That reminds me of a tree. Before a tree grows taller, it develops roots beneath the ground. Those roots aren't visible, but they're essential. Without them, the tree wouldn't be able to grow strong enough to survive storms or support future growth. People often work the same way. Long before visible success appears, they're developing discipline, resilience, knowledge, and experience.
I love that image because it reminds us that invisible progress is still progress. Just because you can't see immediate results doesn't mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the most important growth occurs quietly, beneath the surface, preparing you for opportunities that haven't arrived yet.
And when we understand that, patience becomes a little easier. We stop demanding instant results and start trusting the process. Growth may take longer than we'd like, but that doesn't mean it's not happening.
And trusting the process becomes much easier when we're honest with ourselves. I think honesty is one of the most overlooked parts of personal growth. People often focus on goals, habits, and strategies, but growth usually begins with a truthful look at where we are right now. That kind of self-reflection requires courage because it means acknowledging both our strengths and our weaknesses. It means recognizing the habits that help us and the habits that don't. It means accepting reality without pretending things are better or worse than they actually are.
I agree. Honest self-reflection isn't about judging yourself, it's about understanding yourself. Sometimes people avoid looking closely at their behavior because they're afraid of what they'll discover. Yet avoiding the truth rarely creates improvement. Growth becomes possible when we can say, "This is my current situation," without shame and without excuses. From that point forward, change becomes much easier because we're working with reality instead of wishful thinking.
There's another important distinction here. Many people confuse self-awareness with self-criticism. Self-awareness helps you understand yourself more clearly. Self-criticism often does the opposite. It turns every mistake into evidence that you're not good enough. Instead of learning from experiences, you begin attacking yourself for having them.
That's something I think many listeners will recognize. People are often much kinder to others than they are to themselves. If a friend makes a mistake, we usually offer encouragement, understanding, and patience. But when we make a mistake, the internal conversation can become surprisingly harsh. Suddenly, we're telling ourselves that we're incapable, unsuccessful, or falling behind.
That's why self-compassion is such an important concept. Self-compassion means treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to someone you care about. It doesn't mean ignoring mistakes or avoiding responsibility. It simply means responding to challenges in a healthier way.
That's a wonderful definition. For example, someone practicing self-compassion might say, "I made a mistake, but mistakes are part of learning." Another person might say, "This situation is difficult, but I can learn from it and keep moving forward." Those responses create growth. They're honest without being cruel.
And I think that's the key. Self-compassion allows people to improve without constantly fighting against themselves. When growth is fueled only by criticism, it often becomes exhausting. But when growth includes understanding and patience, it becomes much more sustainable. People tend to stay committed longer because they're no longer carrying the weight of constant self-judgment.
Speaking of self-judgment, let's talk about perfectionism because it often appears alongside it. Perfectionism sounds positive at first. It sounds like having high standards. Yet, in practice, it can become a major obstacle. Many people tell themselves they'll begin when everything is ready. They want the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect opportunity, and the perfect version of themselves before taking action.
The problem is that perfect conditions rarely arrive. Life remains unpredictable. There will always be something that feels unfinished or uncertain. As a result, perfectionism can quietly transform into procrastination. People spend months preparing instead of starting. They spend years thinking about possibilities instead of creating them.
What I've learned is that nearly everything begins in a messy way. New skills feel awkward. New routines feel uncomfortable. New projects contain mistakes. That's not a sign that something is wrong. It's simply the beginning of the learning process. The people who make progress are usually the people who accept imperfect beginnings rather than waiting forever for perfect circumstances.
Another factor that influences growth is something we don't always think about: the people around us. Human beings are deeply affected by their environment. The attitudes, expectations, and behaviors we experience every day can shape how we see ourselves and what we believe is possible.
That's very true. Supportive relationships can make a tremendous difference. Encouraging people challenge us in healthy ways. They celebrate our progress. They remind us of our strengths when we forget them. They help us continue moving forward during difficult periods.
On the other hand, spending all your time in a negative environment can make even simple growth feel difficult. That's why community matters. It's not about surrounding yourself with perfect people. It's about spending time with people who genuinely want to see you succeed and who inspire you to keep learning.
And honestly, that's one reason conversations like these are valuable. Learning doesn't have to be a lonely experience. Thousands of people around the world are working towards similar goals. They're building confidence, improving skills, and trying to become better versions of themselves one day at a time.
That thought leads me to a reflection I'd like to share with our listeners. Take a moment and think about the person you were 1 year ago. Not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, just 1 year ago. Think about what you knew, what you worried about, and what challenges you were facing at that time.
When people do that exercise, they often discover something surprising. Even if life doesn't look dramatically different, growth has usually occurred. You've gained experiences, you've learned lessons, you've handled situations that your past self hadn't encountered yet. Some of those changes may be obvious, while others may be hidden.
That's why I think small changes deserve more appreciation. We often overlook growth because it happens gradually. Yet when enough small changes accumulate, they create a completely different person. Not a different person in identity, but a different person in wisdom, confidence, and experience.
So here's a question for everyone listening. What is one way you've grown during the past year? Take a moment to think about it. The answer doesn't need to be dramatic. Sometimes the most meaningful growth appears in small improvements that quietly change the direction of your life.
Another realization that comes with experience is that growth doesn't have a final destination. Many people imagine reaching a point where everything is complete. They imagine becoming confident enough, successful enough, disciplined enough, or knowledgeable enough. Then they expect life to feel finished in some way.
Yet life rarely works like that. Every stage introduces new opportunities to learn. Every challenge teaches a different lesson. Every achievement opens the door to another level of understanding. Growth is less like reaching a mountain peak and more like continuing along a path that never truly ends.
I actually find that comforting. It removes the pressure of trying to arrive somewhere permanently. Instead of chasing a finish line, you can focus on becoming a little wiser, stronger, and more capable over time. Continuous learning keeps life interesting because there's always something new to discover.
And that's true whether we're talking about relationships, careers, language learning, or personal development. The process continues. We continue. That's what makes growth meaningful. It's not a destination we reach once. It's a lifelong practice.
Before we finish today's discussion, let's spend a few moments practicing English together. If possible, answer these questions out loud. Speaking aloud is one of the best ways to improve fluency and build confidence.
Here's the first question. What does becoming your best self mean to you?
Second question, what is one strength you would like to develop further?
Third question, what challenge has taught you an important lesson about yourself?
Fourth question, what habit would you like to improve during the next few months?
And fifth question, what is one small action you can take this week to move closer to your goals?
To help you answer, here are 3 useful sentence patterns. The first one is, I'm working on becoming more.
The second pattern is, one habit I'd like to improve is.
And the third pattern is, I'm making progress by.
Try pausing this episode and answering each question using those sentence structures. Don't worry about being perfect. Focus on expressing your ideas clearly. Every time you speak English, you're strengthening an important skill.
As we come to the end of today's conversation, let's quickly review what we've discussed. We talked about intentional living, self-awareness, limiting beliefs, discouragement, consistency, patience, self-compassion, perfectionism, self-trust, and personal growth.
We explored why growth isn't always visible, why comparison can be misleading, and why progress matters more than perfection. We also discussed the importance of supportive relationships, honest self-reflection, and believing in your ability to continue learning.
Most importantly, we discovered that becoming your best self isn't about reaching perfection, it's about continuing to grow. It's about making thoughtful choices, learning from experience, and moving forward one step at a time.
Before we say goodbye, here's our question of the day. What is one quality you would like to develop in yourself? Maybe it's confidence, patience, discipline, resilience, kindness, or something completely different.
Write your answer in the comments using this sentence pattern. I would like to become more. We always enjoy reading your responses, and it's a wonderful way to practice your English writing skills.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, comment, and subscribe to Speak English Daily. Your support helps us continue creating lessons and conversations for English learners around the world.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember that meaningful progress often begins with small daily actions.
Take care of yourself, trust the process, and keep moving forward. Learning English is a journey, and we're grateful to be part of it with you. Goodbye, everyone. See you next time.